Hilchas Nachalos Perik Shlishi. So the Rambam continues with the halachas of the chelik habchera, that the bchera takes the pishnayim. Perik Shlishi. Ein habchera netel pishnayim b'nechosim haru'uyim lovei la'achar misas aviv ela b'nechosim hamuchzakim laviv shebol rishusei shnemer b'chela sheimotzalei. The bchera takes pishnayim in something that the father had possession of. And since it was already muchzik laviv, so then when the father dies, so the bchera takes pishnayim. But something that was coming to the father, but the father didn't have possession of it, and then the father died without having possession, and then later on that thing is coming to the father, so Memela is coming to the Yarshim of the father. So we say that since Lepel, the father didn't have it, so the Bcher doesn't take Pishnayim. That's his din Ketzad. Echad Mimerishi Aviv, Shemes La'achar Misas Aviv. You have a father, the father, and has also a father. There's a grandchild, and there's the father and the grandfather. Now Lepel, the father dies, and he left a Bcher and a Pashat. So the Bcher takes Pishnayim of everything the father has, and the Pashat takes only one chelik. He takes one chelik. Then Lepel, the father, also had the potential to yashin his father. He didn't yashin him yet, but Lepel had the potential to yashin him. Then later on, his father died. The grandfather died. So the Chura now, if the father would have been alive, he would have yashined it. And then now the Bcher and the Pashat would have divided it equally. That's if the grandfather would have died B'chai Aviv. But since the grandfather died after the father died, so therefore now the Bcher and the Pashat don't yashin in the grandfather's nechasim like a Bcher and Pashat. They both yashin ke'echad. Because Lepel, since the father never had possession of the grandfather's Yerusha, so therefore the Bcher is not entitled to Bishnayim. He's only entitled to Bishnayim or what? His father had possession of in the Yerusha. Matnasha'inkin, what he was entitled to get, that there's no Pishnayim. Again, let's read again. Ein ha'bcher netel Pishnayim b'nechosim ha'ru'uyim laviv la'achar misas aviv, ele b'nechosim ha'muchzakim laviv, shebol rishusei, shenamar b'chel ha'sheim matzah l'ketzad, echad mirishi aviv, for example, let's say his father, shemes la'achar misas aviv, so the din is ha'bcher v'ha'poshut, yershin ke'echad, they get equally in the grandfather's nechosim, or whatever other. Again, that's also considered Eine B'Shusei. Someone owed the father money, or there was a Sfina Bayam, so he didn't have possession of it because it was a Sfina Bayam. So then is Yer Shenei Abcher Ba'Poshet Ke'echad. So this Sfina Bayam, or Alderas, this Milva, so the Poshet and the Bcher take it Ke'echad. That's this din. However, Allah Beis, Niach Lem Aviyam, Pora Muskeres, a Muchkeres, a Pora that was rented out to someone or leased out to someone, in order either was rented out for a certain amount of time or was rented out in a way that he pays like annually for whatever amount of time it's going to be, or he was pasturing in the pasture, and V'yolda, and Lepel, this para was Yolda. So the din is Abcher Netel Bo B'vloda Pishnayim, because that's considered muzik. Because when you're talking about a Sfina Bayam, so it's out there in the Yam, or you're talking about a Milva, so then the father is not a muzik. Masha'inkin, if the father owns a para, and that para was Reya Ba'afar, and that para had a child, so the pale side, the para inside the child is considered still muzik by the father, and now when the father dies, so the Bcher is Netel Pishnayim, and the Poshet is only takes a Chelik Echad. Halacha Gimel, Shachat Echad Mimakiri Aviv Behema V'achar Kach Mes Aviv. So this was someone that was regularly, that he would give the Matan Kuna to his father. His father was a Kain, and he would regularly get the Matan Kuna from this person that was someone that regularly Makiri Kuna, is Netel Pishnayim Matanis Shleis HaBehem. So again, that those Matanis, even though the father didn't have possession of it, but since it's something that was regular for him to get from this person, so Mele is Keilu, like he already had possession of it. And Memela now, when they divide the Yerusha, the Bcher and the Pashat, so he gets in those Matnas Kuna also, the Bcher takes Pishnayim, and the Pashat only takes a third. Now, so here the Rambam is saying, Nachamal, the Yisod of this din, that a Bcher only takes Pishnayim in what's considered muzik, and that's what's coming to muzik. So we learned over here that when we say that the Bcher is not Netel Pishnayim, Beroi ki b'muzik, the Rambam gives two examples. One example is that he doesn't get the Yerusha that the person that he was Yerush from had a potential to get. So the case is that their father died, so the Bcher takes Pishnayim and the Pasha takes only a third. and then that person, their father's father died, the grandfather died, or his Meirish died. So the din is that since Lepel, their father never had the Yerusha of his Meirish, they only had a potential. So therefore now, when the Meirish died, so then he doesn't get. So then in the nichse of this grandfather that died, he doesn't get Pishnaim. He doesn't get Pishnaim. So the Mashal, for example, if you have a case where there's Yankiv and there's Reuven, and Reuven has two children, Shimon he has two children, a Pcher and a Pashat. So Reuven dies. So Lepel, the Pcher takes Pishnayim, and the Pashat takes only a third. Now Yankiv dies. So Lepel, Reuven really is entitled to Yashin Yankiv. Reuven is entitled to Yashin Yankiv. So Lepel, so Lechura now, the Yarshim of Reuven should get a Pishnayim in the Yerusha of Yankiv. So we say no. That since Lepel Reuven, which is their Meirish, never really had the Yerusha of Yankiv, only had a potential of the Yerusha of Yankiv, so therefore the Yarshim only get the same chelik, the Pcher and the Pashat are chelkim kechad. That's what we learned over here in Perek Gimel Halacha Aleph. The first halacha in Perek Gimel, that's this halacha. That when the Meirish of their father dies, so they're not entitled to their chelik HaPcher. Now l'chura, this is mamish stira to what we learned in Halach in Perek Beis Halacha Zayin. Let's go over again Halacha Zayin. Mi shahoyu lishnei bonim Pcheru Pashat. A person that had two children of Pcheru Pashat, umeisu shneim b'chayav, and both Pcheru Pashat died b'chayav, v'hinichu bonim, and they left children. So you have someone has two children, a Pcher and a Pashat, and then they left children. HaPcher niach bas, v'haPashat niach ben. So harei ben HaPashat yerid b'nichsi azok n'shlish shehu chelik aviv, ubas HaPcher yiresh shnei shlishim shehu chelik aviv. So that's understandable. In other words, you have over here there's a person, let's say Yankiv, and Yankiv has two sons, a Pcher and a Pashat. He has Reuven and Shimon. And then Reuven has a daughter, and Shimon has three sons. And now Lepel, Reuven and Shimon died b'chai Yankiv. And now Yankiv dies. So the din is that Reuven, as a Pcher, is entitled to 2/3 of Yankiv's nechasim. Shimon, as a Pashat, is entitled to 1/3 of Yankov's nechasim. So Mela, Reuven's descendants, Reuven's children, his daughter is entitled to what Reuven was entitled. And Shimon's children are entitled to what Shimon is entitled. And that's no steer to what we learned. Because over there the pshat is the Pcher and the Pashat, they're the ones that are Yashnik. They're not Yashnik Beroy, they're Yashnik B'Muzik. Yankiv was a Muzik, and Yankiv dies, and now Reuven and Shimon are Bekever. So they're Yashnik from Yankiv, and now Reuven's children are Yashnik from Reuven, and Shimon's children are Yashnik from Shimon. That's not a problem. But then there's the next halacha. In halacha zayin, v'chein adin, b'bnei ha'achim, u'bnei achei ha'av, u'b'chol ha'yorshim, im hoya avi echad min ha'yorshim, p'cher, netel chelik p'cher, sh'lizeh ha'yerish machmosei. So what's the case? Let's talk about b'bnei ha'achim. What's the case of b'nei ha'achim? You have Reuven died, and Reuven didn't have any children. So now it goes to, Reuven doesn't have any children, so it goes to Yankiv. Lepel, Yankiv is no longer alive. So now it goes to Yankiv's children. Now Lepel, Yankov's children, so now Reuven died, Shimon died. Yankiv has Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Three children of Yankiv, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Shimon dies without any children. Lepel, so it goes the Yerusha to Yankiv. Lepel, Yankiv is no longer alive. So Mela, it goes the Yerusha to the Bnei Yankiv. Who are the Bnei Yankiv? Reuven and Levi. Lepel, the Bnei Yankiv are also not alive. The Bnei Yankiv, so Shimon is not alive, Reuven is not alive, and Levi not alive. So it goes to the children of Reuven and to the children of Shimon. That's what we're talking about. The Bnei Hachim. So the children of Reuven and the children of Shimon. So now the children of Reuven, they take the Chelik HaPcher, since Reuven was a Pcher and Levi was not a Pcher, so therefore the children of Reuven are entitled to two chalakim of the nechasim of Shimon. Again, Shimon died, so the Chura goes back to Yankiv. Now, Lepel, since Yankiv is no longer alive, so it goes to Reuven and to Levi, which are the brothers of Shimon. Now, Reuven and Levi are not alive, so now it goes to the children of Reuven and Levi. And since it goes to the children of Reuven and Levi, so Memela, the children of Reuven and Levi, they take the chelik hapchera. Since Reuven was the pcher and Levi was not the pcher, so they take the chelik hapchera, just like if L'mashal, Yankov dies. And Lepel, Reuven, and Shimon aren't alive anymore. So Lepel, the children of Reuven will take the chelik of Reuven, and the children of Shimon will take the chelik of Shimon. So over here also, over here you have Reuven and Levi, they're not Yarshining Yankov, they're Yarshining Shimon, which is being Yarshined by Yankov. So in other words, there's a Shimon that died, Shimon doesn't have any children, it goes back to Yankov. Yankov is no longer alive, so it goes to Reuven and to Levi. Reuven and Levi are no longer alive, so it goes to Reuven and Levi's children. That's l'chura the Seder Advar. So now the Rambam is saying that since Reuven was the Pcher and Levi wasn't the Pcher, so the children of Reuven are entitled to the Chelik HaPcher of Reuven, and the children of Levi aren't entitled because they're Poshet. That's what their din is. V'chein din. Let's go over again. Halacha Zayin. Misha hayu lishnei bonim. There was a Pcher who Poshet. And then Umeisu Shneim, they both died. B'chayav. And then Ve'inichu bonim, they left children. We saw in the case Yankov was alive. He had Reuven and Shimon. Reuven had a daughter. Shimon had a son. Now he had two bonim, and they died b'chayav. They died b'chayav. The two bonim, the Reuven and Shimon, died b'chayav. And Lepeil, they left children. Hapcher niach bas, v'aposhet niach ben. So the din is ari ben aposhet yerish b'nichsi azok n'shlish. He gets a third of the Nichsi Azokin, and the Bas HaPcher gets 2/3 because Lepil, this father's was a Pcher and he wasn't a Pcher, so maybe he gets 2/3, he gets a third. V'chein adin b'bnei Achim u'b'bnei Achei Ha'av u'b'chol HaYorshim im hoya avi echad ben HaYorshim Pcher is neitol chelik Pcher shlei zeh Yerish Machmosei. So the children of Reuven, again, in case Shimon died, Yankov was no longer alive, Reuven and Levi weren't alive, so the children of Reuven get the chelik hapchera of they get the chelik hapchera of Shimon's nechasim. Why? Because Reuven and Levi, Reuven was the pcher, and he was yashning Yankov, and Yankov was yashning Shimon. That says a klar halacha. So the chura, let's ask, what will be in a case where Reuven and Levi are alive? Not Reuven and Levi aren't the case. And Halacha Zayin over the Peri Beis Halacha Zayin was a case where Reuven and Levi aren't alive. And if Reuven and Levi would be alive, so the Chura Reuven and Levi now are going to Yashin Yankov. So we're saying they're Yashin Yankov. Now Yankov is not alive anymore. So they're Yashining Shimon's Yerusha through Yankov. Now Lepel, since Yankov never had that Yerusha of Shimon, so it's considered Roy. Yankov is a Roy to be Yerush from Shimon. So Lepel, the Nechasim, if Reuven and Levi were alive, they wouldn't get Pishnai. Reuven wouldn't get Pishnai. Wouldn't get Pishnai. That's based on halacha, what we just learned now. That if a person is a Pcher, and the other one's a Poshet, and they're Yashning, so if they're Yashning direct from their father, Beseder. But if they're Yashning from someone that's being Moirish to their father, so then they don't get Pishnai. So Mele, if Reuven and Levi would have been alive, and then Shimon would have died, and Yankov was no longer alive. So basically what would have happened is that Reuven and Levi would have been Yashning Yankov's Yerusha in Shimon, so they wouldn't get Pishnayim, because that's considered a Roy Na Mukzik. So how could it be that if Reuven and Levi were alive, they wouldn't have gotten a Pishnayim in Shimon's Yerusha? So now that Reuven and Levi aren't alive, and what's happening is that Reuven's children and Levi's children are yashning what Reuven and Levi was supposed to yashin in Yankov's Yerusha in Shimon. So then they are entitled to Pcher. L'chura, where did this Pcher come? L'chura, since their father, if they would have been alive, wouldn't have gotten the Chelik HaYerusha of a Pcher, because it would have been a Roy, not a Mugzik. So how could it be that when their father is not alive and they're only Yarshim, so then they do get a Chelik HaYerusha? That's a Kash Magid Mishnah. It's l'chura big Kasha in Pshat, and there's a lot of Tirutzim on it. It's not such an easy teretz. But that's the Shailam Pshat. But the Nekudas Advarim is that if the Pcher and the Poshet are alive, and they're Yarshning someone, that they're coming Machmosei, clearly, the Pcher and the Poshet are alive, so we say that since it was never Mugzik by that person, it was only Roy because he's Yashing it for someone else, so then they don't get the Chelik HaPcher. Masha'enkin, in a case where they're no longer alive, it's their children alive, So side the B'cher and Pashut aren't alive, and side the Meirish is not alive of the B'cher and Pashut. It's only he's being Yashning Bekever from Shimon. So Yankov is being Yashning Bekever from Shimon, and he's being Meirishit to Ruvain and Levi Bekever. So then the children of Ruvain and the children of Levi, they divide it, and over there, Bekever, Ruvain has the din of a B'cher, and Levi doesn't have a din of a B'cher, which has to be understood. If he would be alive, he wouldn't have a din of a B'cher. So why Bekever? He does have a din of a B'cher, which is Sarach Bir. Halacha Dalet. Ein B'cher netel pishnayim, b'shvach sheshavchu nechosim la'achar misasov. So in other words, when the father died, so there was a certain, what the nechosim were, and in that, those nechosim as they were when the father died, that's what the B'cher is entitled to pishnayim. Mashenke the shvach sheshavchu nechosim la'achar misasov, that they're not entitled to that shvach. Elamaila ese ashvach bedomim. In other words, we assess how much is that shvach worth, and then the nesna yesel the whatever is extra, you give to the pashut. In other words, since in that shvach he and the pashut are equal, so therefore he has to divide it with the pashut equally. That shvach is divided to pashut equal. So in other words, let's say there's karka, so he took 2/3 of the karka, and 1/3 of the karka went to the pashut. Now from those 2/3 of the karka, there's a shvach. So that shvach he's not entitled to. He's only entitled to half of that shvach, because the gabi the shvach, he and the pashut are supposed to divide equally. So therefore he has to assess how much is that shvach and give half of it to the pashut. Now, when do we say that the shvach sheshavchu nechosim don't go to the B'cher? That's only for sheishtanu on nechosim. In other words, the nechosim changed. In other words, there was what the yarshin was one thing, and now there was a change through the shinu, through the shvach. There was a change in the nechosim. So that change is not, the B'cher is not entitled to. He's only entitled to pishnayim and what they yarshined, not to this new matzah. To this matzah, who sheishtanu on nechosim getting karmel. In other words, it was tzvua that was still karmel, was soft, not yet kernels mamish, shnasu shibolim, or vikafnias, small dates, shnasu tmorim. Aval b'shavchu machmas atzmam v'lei nishtanu. It became a shvach, and there was no real change. Again, ilon cotton. It was a small tree, shekadl, and became bigger, and v'nasa oven, it became a fatter tree. Or ve'eretz shehel shirte, or you have a piece of land that lepel, there was an overflow of the river, and as a result of that, there was an addition to that piece of land, but it's not like a new name, everything is still the same. So then, it's a reason etel b'shvach pishnayim, because that's part of the karka. In other words, he's entitled to this Indian pishnayim, and this thing became in itself nishtabach. In other words, he's not it's not a nuzach. When you're talking about a new thing, so on the new thing, he's not entitled to pishnayim. But in the old thing, he's entitled to pishnayim, and that old thing became better. So since that old thing became better, so Mamela is entitled to the shvach also pishnayim. However, if the shvach came machmas itzor, not machmas atzmam, so then ain't a netel. Then you have to divide according equally how the itzor was made, and then you have to divide equally if it was a shvach that was generated through working on it. Mashenkin, it was a shvach that came naturally, so it depends. If the shvach changed it, so then we say that he's not netel pishnayim. Mashenkin, if the shvach just enhanced it, the original thing was just enhanced, but it wasn't really a change. So then he doesn't get pishnayim. Halacha hey, einan B'cher netel pishnayim b'milva. Aval pi v'shu b'shtar, even though the father had a star on this milva, v'aval pi shegovu karka b'chevavim lepel, from this karka, from this star, they would give a karka. So basically, there was a shibud on the karka. It was like the father had a shibud on this karka, and lepel, that shibud was actualized. He got the karka. Nevertheless, since lepel at this point in time it wasn't murzik, it was only roy, so therefore, like we learned before, ein B'cher netel pishnayim b'roy el b'murzik. Now, hoy la'av milve b'yad B'cher. The actual B'cher himself, he borrowed money from the Av. So he owed money to the Av. And now he has to pay back to the Av. So now the father died, so be'etzim he has to pay back the father. Lepel, he's a B'cher, so he's entitled to part of that payback. Now the question is, in that milva which he himself owes to the father, is he entitled to 2/3 of the milva? In other words, if there's two brothers and both of them are pshutim, and one of them has a milva, so obviously, since they have to pay back the father, from that money, they're going to divide the money equally, so the pasha, two pshutim, so each one, he only pays half. Now if there's a B'cher, so the question is, since he has the money, so l'chura, as far as he's concerned, there's already a murzik. So Memela, so could be he's entitled in 2/3 of that money. So that's the suffix. There is a suffix. Im Yitel bo Pishnayim. Maybe the Bcher should take Pishnayim in this milva, because the milva is to him. Hail v'yeshn tachas yodi, because he has the money. He owes the money to the father, and the father wasn't a muhzik in the money. So he's only arshus pishnayim, something that was a muhzik b'yodi shalav. But since lepel, this milva wasn't a muhzik b'yodi shalav, because it was by him, so therefore he's not entitled to pishnayim. So therefore they divided. It's a suffix, it's a sveik of the din of whether or not he's entitled to Pishnayim, so therefore he only takes half, and the other half he gives to the Pashat. Halacha Vav. B'cher shemochar chelik b'chera kedem chaluka. Before they divided it, he already sold the chelik b'chera. So the din is mebchari kaim, the sale is a sale. Nesheyesh leb'cher chelik b'chera kedem chaluka. Before they divided, he already has chelik b'chera. Just like we have two yarshim, and the father died, so each one has a chelik. So Alder is over here. The B'cher already has the Chelik HaB'cher. We don't say that while they're dividing it, he's entitled to the Chelik HaB'cher. We say no, that he already, L'chatchila, he has the Chelik HaB'cher, and that Chelik HaB'cher could be sold. That he already owns the Chelik HaB'cher. B'cher shemachar Chelik B'cher. Kedem chaluka, memkari kayim, neshiyash l'B'cher Chelik B'cher, kedem chaluka. Lefichach. Since we're saying that he already owns it, Lefichach, if he owns it, he could sell it, and al derech he can be meichel on it. If he doesn't own it yet, so he can't sell it, and he can be meichel on it. Masha'ekin, if he already owns it, so then he can sell it and be meichel on lefichach. Im cholak im echav b'miktzas nechasim. When he was cholak im echav b'miktzas nechasim, bein bekarka, bein b'metalton, and v'notal chelik kipashet, lepel, in that miktzas nechasim, they divided and they didn't give him the chelik ha'pchera, so we understand that vitar b'chol nechasim. So that's understandable, that it's an understanding, it's self-understood that since he was Mavatar HaMiktzah Nechasim, so if the Pshat is that in each Nechasim, that's when he gets the Chelik HaPchera, he doesn't have the Chelik HaPchera till later, so he can be Mavatar. Right now, he was Mavatar, and what he got later on is a Geschäft. Masha'enkin, if we're saying that he has already the Chelik HaPchera, and he could go sell him the Chelik HaPchera. Lepel, he was Vita b'miktzas nechasim, so the Stam Das is that he was Vita b'miktzas nechasim, his Mustamba wants him in Vatar and everything. So therefore, Vita b'chal nechasim, and therefore, ve'ena netel b'sharin ele kepashat. Now, by Medvar Mamun b'shlei micha, they divided it, and he only got kechelik ha'pashat. They didn't give him what he was really entitled to chelik ha'pcher, and he didn't say anything. So, Mimela, we could assume that he was Mevatar on everything, on his whole schus of being ha'pcher. Aval micha be'achiv. Or be'echav, v'amar b'fnei shnai. Anov meilu shani chelik im achai b'shava. Lei b'pnei shemachalti b'chelik b'cheira. I'm telling you b'ferish that I'm not being mavatar on b'chelik b'cheira. Even though right now I'm being willing to take in this part, taka only as a poshet. But the pill, I'm not being mavatar on my chelik b'cheira, is a reza mecha. That's considered a mecha. And therefore, v'lei vita b'shara nechasim. So these nechasim, which he taka took a poshet, so even though he made a macha, a general macha, about his B'cheira shaft, but that Lepel right now he was Mavatar, because Lepel he accepted it Keposhet. Masha'enkin, the Macha helps that as far as the other Nechasim is concerned, is not considered a Vita. Now, Afila Micha Ba'novim Kshem Mechubarim. Lepel, while the Novim were Mechubarim, he made this Macha. And then Ubotzrum, and then they harvested the Novim. And then V'chilkum B'shavar, and they divided B'shavar. So the Churid is a svara to say that we forget about the Machor that he made while they were Mechuber, and now it's Ki'ilu Chilkum B'shavar without a Machor. And Mamela, it is considered a Vitor on Shar Nechasim. We say, no, Le Vitor B'Shar Nechasim. Because Lepel, he already made a Machor in the Anovim. Einochinam, he made the Anovim before Botzrum, and now then they were Botzrum and they were Chilkum B'shavar, but that Machor still stands. That's talking about if there was just grapes. It was grapes before, grapes now. The difference is only that before the Anovim were Mechubarim, and now they were Botzrum. Avalim Dorchum. When they were cutting the Anovim, he made a Machoy, he says, listen, even if you give me half, you give me only Kechelik HaPoshem, but I'm not Meich, I'm not being Mevater on my other Din HaPcherim. But then Dorchum, then they went ahead and they squeezed out the grapes. And V'cholek Imoim B'Shaveh B'Yayim, and he was chelik imam b'shaveh b'yayin v'lei micha b'hem mishanas yayin, and he wasn't meicha. No, he was only meicha while they were grapes, but he wasn't meicha after they became wine. So then his vita b'chol nechasim. Then we say since he accepted the wine kiposhut, so therefore he's vita b'chol nechasim, just like he would accept it without being making a macha, because the macha that he made on the grapes is not chal on the wine. Halamazad deima lemisha micha b'anovim. No, when they were dividing the anovim, he made a macha. and then he was chelik imoyim b'shava b'zeisim. So the Machoa helped that the fact that if they would be chelik b'shava b'anovim is not an indication that viter. But the Machoa and the anovim is not an indication that if he's going to be chelik b'zeisim b'shava, it's not considered a viter. That is considered a viter. So al derezeh we're comparing anovim and zeisim to anovim and yain. That's what he's saying. Halamazah deima lemisha micha b'anovim v'cholik imoyim b'shava b'zeisim shari viter bakil v'chein kol ki hitzvah. So that's it. Halacha zayin. Mi sheyibim eshes ochiv. His brother died without children, and he was miyabim his wife. There were other brothers, and he was one of them. Were miyabim this deceased brother's wife. So the din is hu yerish kol nichsi ochiv hamuchzokim. He yarshans all his brothers nechasim, but only the ones that his brother had possession of hamuchzokim. Aval haruyin lavi la'achar mikan, but those possessions that he didn't have, but they were only roy to come to him, is areu behem kecholachim. He doesn't have any special din. So normally a brother, all the rest of the brothers yarshnim. Or if there's a father, the father yarshins. We're talking about the brother died without children. So memela, so the other brothers yarshin, they all yarshin equally. When they get the roy, they yarshin equally. Masha'ekin, the memuchzik, that's when he has. Shaharei b'cher kore eisi hakosef. The pasuk says Shnamar v'hoya b'cher shetelid yokum al shem ochiv ames v'yimach shmei b'Yisrael. So even though the pasuk shot in the pasuk that we're talking about the child that the Yavam will have through Yibum, but Chazal darshan that it goes on the Yavam himself. So the Yavam is being referred to as being a b'cher, and mainly we learn out that just like a b'cher doesn't take pishnayim in the roy, he only takes it in muchzik. So al derezeh the Yavam doesn't have the special din of Yerusha that he's being Yerish. Nichsi Achiv only in Muchzik and not in Yerusha. Now, according to the Rambam, it means also that, let's say, the father of these brothers was still alive, and then he died after the brother died. So it comes out, so Lepel, see, he never really yarshened his father. So since he never yarshened his father, so the Yavam that was Miyabim, his wife, doesn't have any extra schus in the brother's Yerusha in his father. So when the father dies, so all the brothers divided equally, and there's no special schus that this Yavam has, because Lepel, that would be considered roy and not muksik. Just like we learned before, that the B'cher also doesn't have this extra schus in the Yerusha that their father would have had from the grandfather, because that's considered roy and not muksik. Ukshem she'ena netel b'roy ki b'muksik. In other words, he's similar to a B'cher in the fact that he's ena netel b'roy ki b'muksik. Kach ena netel b'shvach sheshavchu nechasim achar misas aviv mishas misa ad shas chalukosei im echov nichsi aviv va'afilu hishbichun nechasim achar sheyibim v'kedem sheyachleku is hareu b'shvach ke'echad menachem. Now we learned before that a b'cher doesn't take b'shvach pishnai. What does it mean? That if the father died, and Lepel there's a b'cher in the pashat, so b'cher is entitled to 2/3, and the pashat is entitled to a third. So that's from the nechasim that the yarshend, the b'cher is entitled 2/3, and the pashat is a third. But Lepel, if there was a shvach to those nechasim after they died, after the father died, and obviously it's talking about before there was a chalukah, because if there was a chalukah already, so the b'cher took 2/3, and then the pashat took 1/3. And Lepel, his 2/3 became shvach, so you're not going to say that he doesn't get all 2/3 of shvach. Over here we're talking about Lepel, there was a Yerusha in Nichsei of the father, and the B'cher had the right to take 2/3 of that Yerusha, the Pasha had a right to take 1/3 of the Yerusha, and then there was a shvach. So we say, B'negeya, the Nechasim itself, so the B'cher still has 2/3 and the Pasha has 1/3. But as far as the shvach is concerned, the B'cher doesn't get more shvach than the Pasha. That was the din that we learned before. So that is over here. Over here when you're saying the shvach and the Pasha, it means to say, but again, the nechasim of the Yavam, so obviously, since he's yashin the nechasim of the Yavam, so memela, so lechura, so he has also the shvach of the nechasim of the Yavam. Masha'enkin, over here we're talking about the nechasim of the Yavam, they yashin from his father. So in other words, the father died, b'chaye of the deceased brother. There's a brother that died, but before that the father died. So now when the father died, so all the brothers became Yorshim. All the brothers became Yorshim. All the brothers became potential Yorshim. There was no Chalukas a Yerusha, but they all have potential Yorshim. And now this brother died, and now the Yavam went ahead and was Miyabim Ishtei. And now they're going ahead and dividing the nechasim. So the din is, since he was a yavam, since he was miyab, this person's wife, so he's entitled to his brother's chelik in his father's Yerusha. He's entitled to his brother's chelik in his father's Yerusha. The shaila is he entitled to his brother's chelik in the father's Yerusha and the shvach that happened of that chelik? Is he also entitled to the shvach of that chelik, or is only entitled to the chelik itself? So that's what we're saying, that he's only entitled to the chelik itself of the brother in the father's Yerusha, but he's not entitled to the shvach that happened in that chelik. Let's read it again. Kshem shein enetel beroike b'muzik, kach in enetel b'shvach sheshavchu nechasim. Nechasim means the nechasim that this brother yarshened from his father. Sheshavchu nechasim achar misas aviv, after their father died. Mishas misa achas chalukasi yem echav b'nichsi aviv, until the time of the chalukas, any shvach that happens from when the father died until there was a chalukah. So this yavam, which is miyabim, is getting a right to the piece of karka, but on the other hand, he doesn't have a right to the shvach. Va'afilu hishbichun nechasim achar sheyibim v'kedim sheyachluku is hareu b'shvach ke'echad menachem. As far as the shvach, again, we're talking about the shvach that came to the karka that the brother yarshened from the father. The karka that the brother yarshened from the father, and that karka which the brother yarshened from the father is going to the yavam, because he was miyabim, and lepel, we're talking about the father died before the brother died. So the father died, and lepel, all the brothers have a chelik in the father's Yerusha, and now this brother died, and now this brother is going, the other brother is going ahead and be miyabim the brother's wife. So now he's entitled to this brother's chelik in his Yerusha from his father. So we say he's only entitled to the chelik Yerusha of his father, which is the chelik itself, but not to the shvach that was ishbichu of the chelik of the father. That's his din. Kshem shein enetel beroikim muzakach ein enetel b'shvach sheshavku nechasim acha misas aviv mishas misa, from when the father died achat chalukasiyim echav b'nichsi aviv va'afilu ishbichu nechasim acha sheyibim v'kedim sheyachluku, even there was already yibim took place and then there was the shvach. Nevertheless, hareu b'shvach ke'echad menachem. Ba'aval pi shenetel min ha'nechasim elu shnei chalakim. He takes two chalakim. Chelkei v'chelik ech ochiv she'ibim mishtei. Heilu mes ha'av b'chayi kolam. So Yitaka takes the brother's chelik as well. So Yitaka takes the brother's chelik. But he doesn't take the brother's chelik, the shvach that happened on the brother's chelik. That's this thing. He's not entitled to the shvach that happened in the brother's chelik b'nichsei aviv. My says it's not. It's a big machlekes rishenim and pshat over there in the Gemara, but it's a little bit hard to understand the halacha of the Rambam, because the father died. The father died b'chayev of before the brother died. So he died. So right now there was a Yerusha. There was a Yerusha to all the brothers. They were all entitled to the Yerusha. There was no chaluk yet, but they was entitled to the Yerusha. And now there was, let's say, a shvach in that Yerusha before the brother died. So l'chura, when the brother dies, so this not a din. L'chura, the brother dies, he has an entitlement to this Yerusha with the shvach. L'chura, he already had an entitlement to the Yerusha. I'm sorry. When the father died. So l'chura, at that point in time, everyone yarshed this nechasim. Now lepel, the brother died. So what's the brother's chelik in the Yerusha? L'chura, the brother's chelik in the Yerusha is the karka plus the shvach. The karka was the shvach. In other words, the father died. At this point in time, now the brother died. So the brother already, l'chura, has a chelik in the Yerusha plus the shvach. It's not extra din. There's no extra din. That's his chelik. All the brothers are going to divide the karka plus the shvach. Now the brother died. And now the other brother went ahead and was miyab his wife. So l'chura, the shvach that happened until the brother died, so the chura for sure should belong to this brother who's being miyab, because that's the chelik of the brother. That's already muzik. It's not roy. The chura, that's already muzik and not roy. And it's not shvach. I mean, it's not a din of muzik and roy. It's not really shvach. The chura, so he's entitled to it. So that's the chura, one shaila, which also the rishenim ask about it. And then there's the next stage where we say there's the shvach that happened after the brother died, before this brother was miyab. So that shvach that happened after the brother died, was really a shvach that belonged to all the brothers. It really was a shvach that belonged to all the brothers. And now Lepel, it never really belonged to his brother. It's his nechasim, but his nechasim was nishbach, was meshubach. And now comes along this yavam. Now the yavam is being miyabim. So the seichel will be fakert. That whatever happens after the yibum, we can understand that shvach, since there was no chaluk yet, so the Lepel, he doesn't really have it completely, just like the Bcher, before the chaluk, he doesn't have yet the pishnayim. So that pishnayim, that chelik of the extra chelik, he's not entitled to the shvach of that extra chelik. And so over here also, since he made a yibum, and Lepel, he's entitled now to the chelik of the yavam, but Lepel, he doesn't have it yet, because Lepel, it wasn't yet divided. So now when there was a shvach of that chelik, he's not entitled to that shvach. But the part that was there before the yibum, l'chura fakert, that was the part that was belonged to the brother. From the Rambam comes out fakert. The Rambam comes out. The chiddush is that even the shvach that happened later, that's what he's not entitled to. In other words, the fact that he's not entitled to the shvach that happened from when the father died until the brother died, that's pashut. Then the shvach that happened from when the brother died until yibum was also pashut. The chiddush is that even the shvach that happened later is also not entitled. It's not so clear. Why is that more of a chiddush? L'chora, the chiddush would be fakert. Halacha ches. Kvar biyarnu b'hilchus shchenim, shabcher netel shnei chalokim shalei ke'echad, b'meitzer echad. A bcher, when he takes his two chalokim together. But like we said before, that he takes, as we said, there's 4 brothers, so then he takes a third. So he doesn't take 2/6. He takes a third. Aval hayavam shechalakim echad b'nichsei aviv is netel chelke v'chelik achiv begel. So it's 2 separate dinim. It's not like one chelik he has his chelik and his brother's chelik. One chelik he has as himself, and another chelik he's having b'schus of his brother. And the ma'al girol b'shnei mekemis is netel b'shnei mekemis. So then he takes b'shnei mekemis. So there's no din that he gets both chalakim together. Now Lepel, the Maggid Mishnah says in Hilchos Shchenim that if Lepel there's no loss, and if it's different types of chalakim, and they assess the different chalakim separately, there are different types of karka, so therefore there's no inyan of midas daim. You can't tell I want to have this karka together. There's different types of karka. Mashenkin, all the karkois are similar in type, and Lepel he's getting 2 chalakim. So Mela, there's a din, just like a bar metzra, there's a din of kefin al midas daim. So Aldera's over here. Since you're getting anyways 2 chalakim, and it doesn't make anyone a difference if you're going to get the 2 chalakim together, or you're going to get it separate. So then you'll take get it together. Over here we're talking about that there's 6 separate types of chalakim. And he's telling, I want to have my chalakim together. So he said, you want to have your chalakim together, but there are different types of chalakim. And therefore you don't have your rights to go take a dafka together. Halacha test. Shemeres Yavim Shemesin. There's a suffix whether she has a dinner nesua that the Yavim yarshens her or not. So Afilo also be'echad ben ha'acham maimer, but maimer is like a kedusha midrabanan that they're chum mitaken that you should mekadesh the isha before you mayabim her, but it's only midrabanan. So there's azay. Since it's a suffix whether she has a dinner of a nesua, is mishpachas beis avia yershin nichsi melug v'chatzin nichsi tzim barzel. Now the nichsi melug were becheskosa. The Nichsin Sim Barzel, on one hand, they were Becheskas Habal, because he gave it to her, she gave it to him, and he had a right to use it. But on the other hand, he owed it back to her. If they're still Ba'an, he would have to give it back to her, he had to pay her back for it. Because it was, Nichsin Sim Barzel was like somewhat, it was Becheskas Habal, but on the other hand, he owed it back to the Isha. So therefore, it has like a din of a suffix. It's not considered that the Baal is Mamish Muhsin in it. Beneged, Nichsin Melug, since she was a muhzik in it, so therefore it's considered that her mishpacha's based on via is a muhzik in it. Because if it's going over to anybody else, like the Baal is a new person. So if the Baal was around, he would yarshin her. Now the question is the Yavim yarshin her? So basically, if the Yavim is yarshin her, he's taking her away from the natural Yerusha of her regular Yarshim. In other words, the regular Yarshim of her father, or her mishpacha's based on via. Now, if Lepel is a Baal, so the Baal, so to speak, takes her away from her regular din Yerusha. But if there's a suffix, if there's such a Yerish, so something which is Becheskasa remains by her regular Yerish. That's the din. Shemeres Yom Shemes, Afilo Asa Be'echem Menachem Maimer, is Mishpacha's Beisavir, the Mishpacha Beisavir, which means her natural Yorshim without a husband, is Yorshim Nichsi Malug, and also Bechatzim Nichsi Same Barzel. Same Barzel is a suffix who should get it. So therefore, they get half. And the Yershi Abal Yershin Ksubasa. The Ksubasa means they don't pay the Ksuba because Lepel, normally when a husband dies, he would owe her a Ksuba. Lepel, she was Chukal Yav. Lepel, it never happened to Yibum. So the question is the Chi of Ksuba. So we say there's no Chi of Ksuba. Yershi Abal Yershin Ksubasa. They keep the Ksuba. And also, Im Chatzin Nichsit in Basel. Without the Nichsit in Basel. And the Yershi Abal Chayovim B'Kvurasa, because Hail the Yorshu Ksubasa K'mishim B'Arabim came. So they were Masakim Kvurasa because of Ksubasa. So since it ends up that the Yershi Abal never ended up paying the Ksuba, so they're Yorish Ksubasa, so that causes that they should be Mechuyev in Kvurasa. So that's the din. We learned already in Hilchas Ishus this din. So B'Kitzur, Shemeres Yom Shemesa, so her Nichsim Mulug remains Mishpachas Beisavia. Nichsim Barzel are divided between the Yorshi Abal and the Yorshi Hav, and those her Yorshim from Beisavia. And as far as Ksubasa, they don't pay the Ksuba, and they're Mechuyev big for us.